Alrighty, daily trading recap for this Monday, the 18th of April, 2022. To Christ be the glory. Coming in hot and short on this one today. Just doing a very quick recap on this late night edition of the daily trading recap. I'm going to do some market internal dollar volume for the day. First, quickly, NASDAQ $196 billion volume on the day. NYSE $286 billion volume on the day. OTC's $1.5 billion volume on the day. That seems pretty low. I think that might be correct, but if it is correct, it sure is very low. Very sideways day on SPY, coming up, coming down, testing lows, testing highs, testing lows again, and then closing close to high, closing 0.04% in the green in total. Not nailed, but the session-wide strategy on the future side of it worked well today, as well as the 930 strategy, looking for 2 points above the open there, right out of the gate, as well as 10 points from session open. Worked out beautifully today. Shoulda, coulda, woulda been in today, but just had other family stuff going, so I was pretty much away from the computer screen very early on, and did that by choice, knowing that I wasn't looking at a lot of stuff today. And I think that was another step in my career as well, too, of understanding and being okay with it of, hey, I really just don't see anything that I'm so desperately or like want to watch hard, or the things that were there, like CASA, that I'll go into in a few minutes here, of like, yeah, I just really don't want to be a part of it. So taking that next step in my trading career as well, but I was not able to be a part of it, did not have my strategy running for being a part of this opportunity there that it would have also nailed automatically by itself, as the other algorithmic trade does. But learning from my mistakes there on that one, so missed out on that strategy session that would have worked out already for tomorrow's P&L profits there that way, but it is what it is. Getting to CASA here just as a quick recap for the little tiny scalpy micro trades that I took on it. Further progressing on this little 1 minute market open scalp trade again idea that I feel like I've been noticing more and more on these specific tickers that have the first green day, the nice pump, and open above VWAP with continuing strength, that there's just some lingering shorts in these some way, somehow, always, that just continue to end up again and again pushing price a little bit further within that first minute. Doesn't have to continue, doesn't have to mean the full trend for the morning or for the entire day is green. But for some reason, when that big volume comes in, it's just a lot of buying pressure, stepping price up continually. And this whole little strategy is built upon getting a position ready before market open and having a limit order in at whatever my heart desires for what I should look for, what I think could happen, for how fast price could move. Just having that order limit set already and in the system to just look to be filled, just to let it run into, and just protecting for really, really tight stop risk of, okay, I don't want to just set it immediately at my entry point, but I don't want to be setting it more than 2%, more than 3% away from my initial entry price there. And really just, I want to define it by that 1 minute candle, similar to how I do the future strategy of defining it by the 9:30 to 10 a.m. strategy. If it's not so much a risk price, but a risk time frame of saying, hey, this strategy is based on this happening, and for how incredibly complicated it is to try to read that type of price action that's coming in immediately as soon as the market opens, trying to predict where it's going to go from there. It's already past you by the minute you think you've got it, especially for the Wi-Fi that I got right now too. But just, I feel that strategy has been there, and that one worked out well today. I've taken 15 cents, a little over 2%, even for how lackadaisical I was on the entry. I could have got a little closer to 6. I did want to get a little closer to 620. Would have been a 20-cent trade instead of just a 15-cent trade there for what I took it for. Even that of just being a little sloppy for the small shares that I did take on, just still wanting to be a part of it, still thinking that it was a probable trade and wanting to be in that experience of it. But yeah, it's just a beautiful little scalpy trade. That's not my like bread and butter. I didn't try to steal that trade. I don't think I've seen that of anybody else trying to play exactly for that. I'm just banking on that probability of it happening instead of like reading that time and sales level 2 of that happening versus the theme and characteristics that these charts tend to follow, which is what I was basing this type of trade on. But yeah, it certainly is. It's making money. So how could I deny it? That's how I continually have tried to revolutionize my way of thinking of, it's not about how it looks. It's not about how it appears to the perspective of myself. My perspective doesn't matter. It's about making money at the end of the day. Nobody cares. The same thing of golf. I think that's just the greatest analogy of it. There's no pictures on a golf scorecard. All that matters is that number that you write in that box. And the same thing, it's all that matters is that P&L number at the end of the day. That's all that matters. Nobody cares whether it was from futures. Nobody cares whether it was from equities. does not matter whatsoever. All that matters is that number at the end of the day. So continuing to open my eyes to that and just being aware of it doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be well liked by everybody else. All that matters is it makes money. And does it fit my personality? Can I see myself functioning best in that system that way? So getting more philosophical with that than I always tend to do that. But I also took another little stab at it, as I thought it was going to be which I was correct in, but of course the timing of it was just a little weird. As I was keeping an eye on it and just watching it, as it was really the only other thing that I was peaked in for my interest-wise, thought it was going to be a morning dump reversal, a morning dump failure, I like to call it, because of how I like to trade that morning dump pattern where we see the spike. There was even a little fake out here that it broke to new high off of the fake out of failure to maintain VWAP here at this price around 8:08 Eastern time there. Broke to a new high, but still consolidated above VWAP as it was looking that it was weak and starting to break to the downside of VWAP. That's when I would normally jump in short to say, okay, I'm looking for 10% below that price just as a first primary profit target. And that strategy was meant to play out. Usually for those A-plus setups, they just continue to die off in market hours. But for many times when it has just that certain right mixture of dollar volume, of float, of super, super easy to borrow shares on this one as well. I didn't really go into the fundamentals. American Communication, phone line company, 30-minute float. They had a news catalyst, pretty legit news catalyst with Verizon that they had some deal. But that's the thing of it, of just when it's that perfect right mixture, somewhat of, maybe that is just a little bit of intuition based that what I was feeling, I was seeing on level 2 in time and sales, that was just a battle with big volume coming in. And like even breaking it down here, as it was happening, these big volumes coming in to tank it below and saying, okay, it's not really tanking so incredibly fast. I think something could happen here. Getting a pretty high fill, 531, I think, and then shoot, it's breaking to low. I got to respect price. I got to get out here for the 20 shares little thing that I have. It was a bet just to say, hey, I think this is possible. I want to take more stabs in this style of trade, but it wasn't going to happen there at that point. Sure enough, it does end up finding a little bottom later. Call this a little double bottom if you want. Reclaims to VWAP, get big volume surge to the upside. Then it's like, okay, well, it's also not moving incredibly fast either with continuing volume in that same type of range as it did here. Oh, what's going on with this? Another big, huge surge as it tries to break to new high of day, but not really a new relative range high above 5.5, but doesn't have any continuation after that. The more and more this goes on, and then we finally get this short squeeze, a new pre-market high of day there with the biggest dollar volume above 800,000, 950,000 shares it's showing here on Thinkorswim there. Just continuing to hold sideways, kind of creeping above new high there. The whole time it's just slowly becoming more and more of that cemented in my head to say, I just do not want to be a part of this one. For any type of dip and rip play, for any type of trying to practice a short into a spike type of trade that way. The feeling was just, in pre-market, the feeling was, I think this one is just going to be very, very wishy-washy and not fun to be a part of. An overall mental capital drainer than any type of P&L gainer that it could be on the day. And it sure enough did that a lot, just of how it tanked there. This dip and rip opportunity looked absolutely awesome around getting perfectly into that 9:45 time frame of, hey, we've got a beautiful bottom that everybody and their grandma can recognize of where you can place your stop of trying to get long here as it's just under VWAP, as it's kind of sucked in the shorts to think, oh, okay, the morning session is over. It had this big hard red volume candle. Now it's under VWAP. Now we're just going to wait for the continuing fade. Okay, great. This is the perfect dip and rip setup. Let's look for the trade there. Oh, sweet. It's happening. Awesome. Get the price to break above $6 there. Okay, now we're getting to 6.2. Oh, huge rejection comes in. Break to new low. Break. Everybody stops. Collect even more volume on the downside. That was just... Even before that happened, I knew that I think the slippage on this thing, not really predicting this specific candle, but knowing that if it did start to tack there, I was just so, the word comes to mind, fearful, but it's not ever fear, but of respecting the opportunity for this thing to have major slippage in comparison to what do I really think the probability is for this thing to get to any price that I would consider a reasonable profit target of. I got to be looking for 6.3, high 6.2s as minimum to be selling into. And yeah, I can say, oh yeah, maybe I would have been selling there, but I really wouldn't have. That's 6.2 as a high. I would not have been a part of that, even if I did have a limit order set. 6.25, I think, would have been one of my first profit targets, getting an entry around this little dip in your style of trade there. So just a good no call on my part of recognizing that from pre-market to say, yes, yeah, I see it, identify it, but I just don't want to be a part of it. And certainly was a good lesson of not being a part of a trade, of knowing when not to pull the trigger, of knowing when to be on the sideline. So I think developing that skill more and more is certainly saving me a lot more headache that just becomes so unnecessary, I want to say, of just continually beating myself down and down and down and making it harder to dig out of this hole of in my search for profitability as a trader. So great steps there on that one. And that is really all I had in my other scans. I'm doing nothing else so keyed in on that I'm so hard on for to try and trade tomorrow or looking for. ATER, I had a nice little breakout levels, but have not had the most success, I think, with trading breakouts, so may just continue to watch it and see how price action works out that way to find a bias or just to how to look at it, to understand both perspectives, how that level 2 and time of sales is working, but just continuing to learn and soak as much as I can and almost force myself to be in those FOMO situations of forcing myself to watch that price and time and sales harder, saying, having my finger on the button and forcing myself in that FOMO situation, because learning from Friday in that too, I think that was Friday, of, man, it was just so real, that FOMO of every single, especially when you're applying it to the futures, of how I can get so caught up in that, of evaluating every single point, you know exactly where you're standing P&L wise and blah, 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 all these things. That FOMO was just so real, and being able to battle that and come out of the other side and actually kind of conquer it and say, you don't own me. I can totally just sit in front of this computer and be so tempted every single second, and I don't care. It just doesn't matter. It is another day, and there's going to be another day like it tomorrow, and the market is just going to continue to go on and on and on. If I died, the market would continue to go on and on and on. Doesn't care who I am, doesn't care how much money I've made, doesn't care what I think about it. It's just going to continue to go on and on and on. Having that respect for it, I think, is just the most beautiful thing, and something I'm constantly learning as well in this trading career. So that is all I had. I sincerely thank you guys for watching. We will catch you guys on the next one.